Hearty welcome to one and all to the discussion on contemporary Indian philosophy. Today we shall discuss humanism. Humanism is an approach in study, philosophy, worldview or practice that focuses on human values and concerns. Secular humanism is a secular ideology which espouses reason, ethics and justice while specifically rejecting supernatural and religious dogma as a basis of morality and decision making. Secular humanism contrasts with religious humanism, which is an integration of humanist ethical philosophy with religious rituals and beliefs that center on human needs, interests and abilities. The humanism that is ingrained in contemporary Indian thought is a religious and spiritual humanism. The dignity of human being is one of the most important issues discussed by the contemporary Indian thinker. The call for social and cultural renaissance made by the contemporary Indian thinkers is a mark of their humanism. Humanism is a total commitment to the fulfillment of all aspects that go to make up a human being. In modern Indian humanism, we find a synthesis of ancient Indian values and principles of modern Western science. Humanism tries to bridge the gulf between faith and reason, between spirit and matter. Traditional Indian thought equates humanity with divinity. As Swami Vivekananda said, I quote, "Each soul is potentially divine and the aim of life is to realize this divinity." Unquote. Universalism, secularism and spiritualism are the three most important characteristics of contemporary Indian humanistic thought. As man is assumed to be pure, it is believed that evil is found as a result of the conditions that he surrounds himself with, and if these are removed, then his goodness will emerge and progress will be achieved. We can see four major trends in the human situation all over the world. One of these is the tremendous influence of science and technology on human life. Another is the globalization of the economy. A third trend is enlightened humanism in the form of awareness of the rights of deprived people and protest against all forms of exploitation, injustice, tyranny and suppression. The fourth one is the gradual awakening of the spiritual consciousness of humanity. There is also a growing belief that fulfillment can only be found through spirituality. This, when combined with humanism, is termed spiritual humanism, and it recognizes the infinite potential of man. The practical outcome of spiritual humanism may be summed up in the ideals of social service, divinity in man, universal religion and the gospel of love and peace. Hence, it can be held as a panacea for all the evils in society, as it spreads the message of international friendship as well as the essential brotherhood of mankind. Humanism in the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda. One of the most significant contributions of Swami Vivekananda to the modern world is his interpretation of religion as a universal experience of transcendent reality common to all humanity. He met the challenge of modern science by showing that religion is as scientific as science itself. Religion is the science of consciousness. As such, religion and science are not contradictory to each other but are complementary. This universal conception frees religion from the hold of superstitions, dogmatism, priestcraft and intolerance, and makes religion the highest and noblest pursuit, the pursuit of supreme freedom, supreme knowledge and supreme happiness. Vivekananda's concept of potential divinity of the soul gives a new, ennobling concept of man. The present age is the age of humanism, which holds that man should be the chief concern and center of all activities and thinking. Through science and technology, man has attained great prosperity and power, and modern methods of communication and travel have converted human society into a global village. But the degradation of man has also been going on apace, as witnessed by the enormous increase in broken homes, immorality, violence, crime, etc. in modern society. Vivekananda's concept of potential divinity of the soul prevents this degradation, divinizes human relationships, and makes life meaningful and worth living. He has laid the foundations for spiritual humanism, which is manifesting itself through several neo-humanistic movements all over the world. Swami Vivekananda has taught Indians how to adapt Western humanism, that is, especially the ideas of individual freedom, social equality, justice, and respect for women, to Indian ethos. Vivekananda emphasizes on the fact that society will change and make progress if it identifies religion as the soul of humanity, the soul that responds to the realities of life and evolution of human consciousness. He never considers humanism apart from religion and vice versa. As such, the efflorescence of religion always depends on how it best serves humans under all trying circumstances. Contrary to paying importance to rigid dogmatism, which stands in the way of dynamism of religion, he is more interested in making religion a very comprehensive and essential component of growth and development of humanity. Like a humanist par excellence, Vivekananda regards religion as essential for human development from different perspectives. As such, religion becomes a part and parcel of one's very being, always striving for ascent and excellence. That, according to him, is badly necessary to understand, explore, and expand the infinite power inherent in every human being. Vivekananda categorically identifies and practices religion in terms of humanity, and as such pays more importance to the real happenings of day-to-day life, which enable every one of us to know and practice religion that cares for and promotes the divinity inherent in every one of us. It is interesting to recall in this connection how he categorically expresses his belief in God and man in terms of the religion of man. In a letter written to Alasinga Perumal, he poignantly asserts, I quote, "What have I to do with this isms or that ism? I am the servant of the Lord, and where on earth is there a better field than here for propagating all high ideas? Here, where if one man is against me, 100 hands are ready to help me. Here, where man feels for man, weeps for his fellow men and women, are goddesses. Even idiots may stand up to hear themselves praised, and cowards assume the attitude of the brave. And when everything is sure to turn out well, but the true hero works in silence. How many Buddhas die before one finds expression? My son, I believe in God and I believe in man. I believe in helping the miserable. I believe in going even to hell to save others." Unquote. Work to be work in perfect tune with religion must, according to Vivekananda, respond to the cause of humanism. He always defines and explores religion in the heartbeat of every human being, and always emphasizes on sincerely understanding and appreciating religion in terms of man, the divine being. His heart aches for the poor and the distressed, the lowly and the lost, because he feels that every divine being inherent in every one of them is despised and neglected. As a practical and vibrant humanist, he brings religion closest to humans and makes a clarion call to wholeheartedly devote ourselves to alleviate the sorrows and sufferings of people as best as possible. Let us now take a look at the humanism of Tagore. The humanistic attitude pervades all aspects of the philosophy of Rabindranath Tagore. Yet, it does not degrade his thought to narrow anthropocentrism. Tagore humanizes not only nature and objects but also God. In his book, The Religion of Man, he describes the purpose of the book as, I quote, "The idea of the humanity of our God or the divinity of man, the eternal, is the main subject of this book," unquote. In his works, at times, man is raised to the status of God, and at other times, God is brought down to the level of man. This is possible because divinity is said to be discernible in the heart of man. Tagore's God is thus both God and man at the same time. He asserts, I quote, "If this faith be blamed for being anthropomorphic, man is to be blamed for being man," unquote. The humanism of Tagore is the application of the belief that feeling anything as human in the human way is a source of joy. It is the human mind that reveals the meaning and significance of things. Thus, Tagore's idealism is also humanistic. Tagore points out that if we could adjust the focus of the mind, the forest may appear as running and the pleasurable may appear as painful. He speaks of the primacy of the human point of view. The effort of man's personality is to transform everything with which he has any true concern into the human. For example, the description of the beauty of sunrise has its eternal interest in us because it is not the sunrise that catches our interest, but the fact of sunrise in relation to our interest or aesthetic sense. We always find a human touch in the writings and poems of Tagore. If a river is described, a ferry at once appears. If a scene or a landscape is painted, a human form must remain there. When a flower is presented, it is presented as bringing a message for the human soul. If the quietness of solitude is pictured, its peace has to be intensified with joy by the rising notes of a faint song. The outer world is nothing but a cradle for the human spirit. That is why in Tagore's thought, the notions of life, rhythm, beauty, harmony, order, love, delight, music, etc. have become important. All these are human concepts. They become meaningful when they are related to human values. Most of the analogies that Tagore uses to describe nature are related to man's disposition, urges and feelings. For example, in The Lover's Gift and Crossing, he says, I quote, "Oh, listen to the secrets of the world. I know that lily is pale for moon's love. The lotus draws her veil aside before the morning sun, and the reason is simple," unquote. Or again, in the same series of verses, he says, I quote, "The world to you is like an old woman's chant at her spinning wheel, unmeaning rhymes crowded with random images," unquote. Such similes and analogies are not rare, and they are all indicative of the intensely human disposition of Tagore. It is on account of such a disposition that he feels that an intellectual approach to nature and to problems of life is a cold and indifferent approach, because intellect surveys a thing from a distance and in a dispassionate manner. An approach from the heart, full of feelings and interest, is a human approach. The philosopher usually neglects this, but a philosopher who is also a poet makes truth live in the form of beauty and thereby establishes a personal bond between man and objects. Let us now take a look at the humanism of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. The latter half of the 19th century can be indisputably credited with giving birth to some of the greatest sons of Mother India, who rose and shone like shining stars during the 20th century in the otherwise dark skies of the country. During this period, the resurgence of feelings of patriotism, nationalism and societal justice and efforts to translate those feelings into action was unique and unparalleled. Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar was one of the brightest stars among them, and despite having been born in the most underprivileged circumstances, he grew brighter and brighter with age and illuminated the minds of millions with truth, even if harsh and unpalatable. He was a multifaceted personality, and due to his sharp intellect, clarity of vision, integrity of thought, and unadulterated courage to speak the truth, he excelled in all fields that he chose to tread in. Dr. Ambedkar's mind was deeply imbued with Kabir's philosophy in the childhood days. On passing his matriculation examination, he was felicitated by his teacher and was presented with a copy of a book on the life of the Buddha. This gift must have made a profound impact on the mind of young Ambedkar. Apart from his father, 3 names or figures, Gautama Buddha, Jyotiba Phule and Kabir, are the most important. They were regarded by Ambedkar as his 3 masters or gurus. Dr. Ambedkar stayed in America, the land of liberty, for his higher studies. There, he studied the Western liberal thought and the humanitarian philosophy expounded by great thinkers such as Professor John Dewey, who was also his teacher, John Stuart Mill, Edmund Burke, and Professor Harold Lasky, to name a few. The impact of this original thinker on Dr. Ambedkar's mind is evident from the frequent quotations one comes across in his writings and speeches. Whereas the West gave Ambedkar his weapon, the Indian masters gave him his soul force. According to Sonavane, Dr. Ambedkar's personality had strong humanistic underpinnings. It is only regrettable that the press in the past as well as the contemporary has projected Ambedkar mainly as a great social rebel and a bitter critic of the Hindu religion. Critics of Dr. Ambedkar have ignored his basic humanistic instincts and strong humanitarian convictions behind his every act or speech throughout his life. It is important to trace the origin and consolidation of his humanistic convictions." Unquote. Dr. Ambedkar's quest for social justice can be visualized in the philosophy, policy, and ideals of the Constitution of India. The substance of justice, liberty, equality, and befitting human dignity of individual are made more elaborate in parts 3 and 4 of the Constitution. A fleeting glance at the Constitution as a whole reveals the quest of Dr. Ambedkar for social revolution, for the reconstruction of an egalitarian and classless society. The fundamental rights as a whole foster the social reconstruction by generating equality, prohibiting discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth, abolishing untouchability and making its practice in any form an offense punishable by law, and banning trafficking in human beings and forced labor, which furnished a solid basis for social inequalities and injustices. Dr. Ambedkar was a revolutionary, rationalist, humanist, human rights intellectual activist, a man who looked ahead of his time. The Hindu community is set in the steel frame of the caste system, in which one caste is lower than another in social gradation involving particular privileges, rights, inhibition, and disabilities with regard to each caste. This system has created vested interests which depend upon maintaining the inequalities resulting from the system. He therefore, I quote, unfurled the banner of equality, unquote. He was born in an untouchable family, carried on a relentless battle against untouchability throughout his adult life. In the last part of his life, he renounced Hinduism and became a Buddhist. Dr. Ambedkar embraced Buddhism because the Buddhist Dharma is based on scientific reasoning. It seeks to achieve human freedom, equality, liberty, and fraternity. According to him, Buddha taught, I quote, social freedom, intellectual freedom, and political freedom. He taught equality, equality not between man and man only, but between man and woman. His concern was to give salvation to man in his life on earth and not to promise it to him in heaven after he is dead. Unquote. In May 1956, a talk by Ambedkar titled Why I Like Buddhism and How It is Useful to the World in its Present Circumstances was broadcast from the British Broadcasting Corporation, London. In his talk, Ambedkar said, I quote, I prefer Buddhism because it gives three principles in combination which no other religion does. Buddhism teaches prajna, which is an understanding as against superstition and supernaturalism, karuna or love, and samatha or equality. This is what man wants for a good and happy life. Neither God nor soul can save society. Unquote. To conclude, contemporary Indian philosophy is rooted in humanism. There is an implicit agreement among contemporary Indian thinkers on the importance of humanism. Some of them combine humanism with humanitarianism. For example, Swami Vivekananda tries to give to his philosophy a humanistic garb and at the same time recommends very strongly humanitarian work and service. He believes in the power of religion to transform human life for the better. He regards the practice of religion as an essential element for human development. He is the best exponent of spiritual humanism. Tagore takes us to a different dimension of humanism in his poetry and in his Religion of Man. He combines idealism with humanism. In Ambedkar, we find a different variant of humanism that bases itself on social equality and fraternity and modeled on the ancient humanism of Buddhism. He employs humanism as a tool for social change and societal reconstruction. The humanism of contemporary Indian philosophy is far more comprehensive than scientific humanism. It incorporates scientific humanism in its version of humanism but exceeds it. Contemporary Indian thinkers have obliterated the opposition between humanism and spiritualism by suggesting that the former envelops and comprehends the latter. Let us now discuss a few assignments related to this topic. The first is, what are the features of the spiritual humanism of Swami Vivekananda? How does Tagore combine idealism with humanism? What are the humanistic underpinnings in the philosophy of B.R. Ambedkar? Why does Ambedkar regard Buddhism as the most humanistic of all world religions? Let me now introduce you to some important books associated with this topic. The first one is Contemporary Indian Philosophy, penned by Basant Kumar Lal. This book is published by Motilal Banarsi Das in Delhi in the year 2010. The second work that I'd like to introduce you to is A Critical Survey of Indian Philosophy, written by Chandradhar Sharma. This book is also published by Motilal Banarsi Das in Delhi in the year 1987. Another important work that belongs to the same area is Contemporary Indian Philosophy, written by Margaret Chatterjee. This book is also published by Motilal Banarsi Das in Delhi in the year 1998. Another important work in this area is Eastern Religions and Western Thought, written by Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. This was published by Oxford University Press, New York in the year 1993. Thank you one and all for watching this session entitled Humanism.